So I think that the next step here is to observe why the solution that I presented last time doesn't work. And that's their explanation of that is on page 216, the second paragraph. Let us grant, for the sake of argument, that Parfit is correct about his example. The problem is that it cannot be extended to the case of death. The reason is that Parfit's case involves a bad for the person which is experienced as bad by the person. That is physical suffering. One's own pain is perhaps paradigmatic of such bads, but death is not a bad of this kind, right? Death is not an experienced bad, it's an experiential blank. Indeed, the entire problem of justifying our intuitive asymmetric attitudes arises precisely because death is a bad for a person which is not experienced as bad by the person. Further, it seems that it is plausible to suppose that Parfit's conclusion, that is, that we want our bads in the future, that's wrong. We want our bads in the past rather than the future, will only apply to cases involving bads experienced as bad by the person, cases which are structurally similar to Parfit's, except involving bads not experienced as bad by the person, yield symmetric attitudes. That is, what they go on to show or try to prove in the next paragraphs is that when it comes to bads that are unexperienced bads, which is what they think Nagel has introduced, that death is a bad which is not experienced by the person, yet it's still a bad. When they give examples of that, what they seek to show, and you should think about whether you agree with it, is that when it comes to those bads, we are indifferent. We treat them symmetrically. That is, we don't care whether they're in the past or the future. For instance, if we knew that we were going to be betrayed and not find out about it, it wouldn't matter to us whether that happened in the past or the future. That is, bads which are not experienced as bad, we do not care. And you should see that this is a problem, right? Because the bads of death and the bads of prenatal non-existence are both bads that are not experienced by us. They are unexperienced bads. And if it's true that, generally speaking, we treat them symmetrically, such bads, then treating the bads of death and the bads of prenatal non-existence asymmetrically would seem to still be open to the charge of irrationality. We're being inconsistent. They give a very complicated example here, things that we consider to be bad but are not experienced by us but are experienced by another person. You know, this news of you're on some island and you get news that your mother is going to have horrible suffering and then die. But then we find out that actually she has had horrible suffering and has died. We're not relieved, right? If we thought that it was important that that came the past or the future, we would be relieved, but we don't. So another example of how bads not experienced by us, we don't really care whether they're in the past or the future. We treat them as being equally bad. So we treat them symmetrically. So again, we don't have a solution. The upshot is that we don't have a solution to the asymmetry problem. And the final step is there in the last part of the essay, why death is bad. I don't know. I think I understand what they're getting at here, but I'll give it a shot. But I don't want to say that I fully get it because it kind of sounds kind of simplistic. But maybe it is simplistic. They think the key is to kind of refocus from the bads to the goods, because if we return to this line here, the past and the future, one of the things that it indicated is that as temporal beings oriented toward the future, we would rather have our bads in the past than in the future. Well, if we focus on goods, the experience goods of life, the pleasures of life, the opposite is true. We would rather have our goods, our pleasures in the future than in the past. You're on that line, you've got a past and a future, and you know that, you have a choice, let's say a kind of crazy choice, but this essay is full of crazy choices. A choice between having an ice cream cone tomorrow or having had an ice cream cone yesterday. The intuitive answer to that question, which would you rather have, is you'd rather have the ice cream cone in your future. If you got one ice cream cone in your life, you'd rather have it in the future than in the past. You'd rather be looking forward to the pleasure of it than be looking back to the pleasure of it. So just as we want our bads in the past rather than the future, we want our goods, or we'd rather have our goods, our pleasures in the future than in the past. And this does immediately suggest a certain kind of solution to the asymmetry problem. If I can find the here we are. As they say here on page 219, perhaps it is this temporal asymmetry in our attitudes towards certain goods and not the asymmetry in our attitudes towards bads, which explains our asymmetric attitudes towards prenatal and posthumous non-existence. Death is a bad insofar as it is a deprivation of the good things in life. If death occurs in the future, then it is a deprivation of something to which we look forward and about which we care. That is, death will deprive me of goods and pleasures in the future experience goods. But prenatal non-existence is a deprivation of past experience goods to which we are indifferent. Death deprives us of something we care about, whereas prenatal and non-existence deprives us of something to which we are indifferent. So that is really I would say, the substance of their solution to the asymmetry problem. That if we think of the bads of each period of non-existence consisting in the deprivation of goods, death deprives us of future goods. Prenatal non-existence should really be deprived us of past goods. We care more about future goods than we do about past goods, so that it is rational to care more about the deprivations of the future than the deprivations of the past. I do believe that is the substance of their proposal, their proposed solution to the asymmetry problem, that finally what justifies and makes rational our asymmetrical treatment of these two periods of non-existence is the fact that we care more about the goods we're being deprived of in the future than we care about the goods we were deprived of